Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Toronto Sports Rush YouTube channel, brought to you, of course, by the Bet Rivers Network. My name is Kyle Andrew, and I'm joined once again by the face of the NHL Network, Mr. EJ Hradek. EJ, I want to begin with two very important questions for you.
Yeah.
How many times did you charge your phone today, and how much coffee have you consumed?
Well, my phone, I got to get to it. It's getting burned down again, so it'll
Yeah,
be the second time for sure. And yeah, there's been a little caffeine. There's been
a
a
little
little
bit of
caffeine
caffeine.
today. A little bit of caffeine today.
Let's hop right into it right now. The Toronto Maple Leafs, we have been talking for weeks on our after shows about
Yeah.
the needs that they have as a team. And all you hear about was a third line center and another man back on D. It's exactly what they did today. Let's first start with Scott Laughton. Leafs acquired him from Philadelphia. What can you tell me?
Well, I mean, he's just a really quality person, and he's a good back six forward. He's a guy that can help you, like in the details of things, and hard worker, can kill penalties. I think he's really more of a fourth center than a third center at this point of his career. But again, they're going to have they're the little things that guys like that have to do, and to play with you know the grit and the energy that you need from those type of players. So I think he's a fit based on what the options were for the Leafs, and I think he'll be a helpful guy for them. I think the prices were high today for almost anybody who did anything. I didn't think there were very many bargains at all today. And the Leafs paid, I think, a pretty significant price to get Laughton, but they're hoping he can come in and again give them a little jump and help them in some areas and kind of stretch their lineup out a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, you've even suggested in what you've just said there that there's a locker room quality to him as a character
Yes.
and a team builder. And he is from Oakville, Ontario. He played his minor hockey in the GTHL for the Toronto Marlboros. So, like, there's a familiarity with the area and a comfort coming to the major media market, perhaps.
Well, I think so. And he's been around this league for a while. He's played in a lot of games. He's got a lot of experience, and he's a good teammate. He's going to do what they ask him to do. I think he's going to fit in with what Craig Berube has been trying to make this team into this year. So I think it makes sense from that standpoint. There was a lot of talk about Braden Shen. That would have been a much big picture or bigger ticket item for the Leafs to do. And with the market the way it was this year, Kyle, I mean, in terms of the prices, I mean, who knows if they even had the price to get Shen? I mean, that would have been substantially more. So, they end up with Laughton. At the end of the day, for the Leafs, they're still going to have Matthews and Marner and Nylander and
Right.
Tavares, and those guys really drive things offensively. What they're trying to do is stretch things out, move some guys out of the lineup, add a little bit more depth to their group, and bring somebody in that, as I mentioned, is a good teammate that can help with the details. And hopefully it'll be a good fit for them. And you point out he's someone from the area, so he's not going into a place, just the off the ice stuff. He should be very comfortable going there.
Yeah, it seems like it's going to be a good fit. Maybe not the fit that the fan base was looking for, but this is
Yeah,
not easy. And as you said, this was a seller's market this year by far. I
no
didn't
doubt.
realize we also had tariffs on NHL trades right now, but people paid the price today right across the board. Seller's
Yeah,
market in every direction you looked, and this is the cost of doing business right now. And we'll get to it later, but the Leafs had to do business today because everyone that they're chasing or encircled
yeah,
by was doing the same. So let's
yeah,
move into their second trade with a major seller today, the Boston Bruins.
yeah.
They
Wow.
acquired Brandon Carlo. 2 years left at 4.1. What can you tell me about him?
Well, he's got term, right? So that's the thing. It's just not just for this year. He's not a rental. He comes in and he'll be here, for a couple of years. He's a long, lanky, right shot defenseman, defends well. He's played in big games before. He's played in a lot of big games against the Toronto Maple Leafs. So I think you put Tanev back in the lineup healthy. You have Carlo behind him. Now you're looking at, I think, the kind of team they want on the blue line, just bigger, stronger, harder to play against. My only concern with Carlo is he is a guy that gets dinged up from time to time, as is the case with Tanev, right, who's out right now. So you're always worried about that. But that is just something, I mean, that's part of, doing business in the National Hockey League. I mean, Victor Hedman hobbled off the ice the other night. So these are the concerns always. You can't predict injuries. You're hoping everybody stays healthy. I think he brings experience. And I do think that he's kind of really a good fit for what they wanted because it stretches things out on defense. moves people back into the right spots. And I thought that was a really good pickup for him. Now they paid again a big price. I mean, Fraser Minton is someone that the Leafs really he's a prospect that they really like. He's one of those top 3 prospects in their group that you didn't know if they were going to be willing to part with. We've seen around the league that, people have had to part with some of those guys. And I think, for the Leafs in this case, he has term. I wouldn't have wanted to do that for a rental, but he has term in Carlo, and he can be a part of their group on defense for the next couple of years.
Yeah, I want to go over the details because this was actually a 3-way trade,
Yeah.
just so people at home understand. The Leafs acquired Carlo, of course. Boston got Minton in a first rounder, I believe, but that's conditional upon something. Is that
Yeah.
correct? And then Pittsburgh received Timmins and Dewar. So
That's right. And that was a way to move money out for Toronto, right? To get Timmins and Dewar off their books. And so, these are the creative ways you have to do things. That was a trade that came down very late, right up against the 3 o'clock window. So that was something
yeah,
that probably everybody worked on to get that to make that happen. But in the end, for the Leafs, I think, they're only looking at it from their perspective. They got a guy that, I like the fact that he's under contract, big, long, right shot defenseman, still in the prime of his career. I think he's going to be a helpful player for them. And a 4.1 per season. I mean, the cap is going up.
it
I mean,
is.
that is a very reasonable number for a player like that. Who'll probably play you 20, 21 minutes a night.
Yeah, and he already seems like kind of a Berube style guy. He's big,
Yeah.
he's long and lean, as you say. He plays tough, and he's moving bodies in front of a net. When you already have a likely number 1 goalie who himself is very, very large, it's a good fit. And there's
Yeah.
if you're a Leafs fan right now, you can't be too disappointed by this. The cost is high, but it's not like they got doused. Everyone in the league paid a high cost today.
Yeah, and you know what? You can slide him right in there with Morgan Riley, right? Who is, I think now you have Tanev and McCabe. You can have Carlo and Riley, and all of a sudden now you've got a pretty good 4. You have OEL that slides into the 5 spot, but you can move him around in different situations. And Benoit is in there at 6. But I think it just makes their group of defensemen a little bit deeper, a little bit better. And as always, you're just hoping that guys stay healthy and can be performing well at the right time of year.
That's right. So let's circle around the league to some competitors' notes.
Yeah.
The Florida Panthers acquired Marchand today, and that's so interesting because
Yeah.
that's a team the Leafs very well may need to go through, and
Yeah.
they've had problems with this guy in his time in Boston, and now here he is going to continue his perturbance of Toronto Maple Leaf land.
Yeah, I mean, and let's face it, I mean, the way this is coming down the stretch, like these last, 20 games that are left, I mean, who knows who's going to play who in the first round, Kyle? We've
Yeah,
talked about it a number of times, right? It's important.
yeah,
I think in the Central, for Winnipeg to hold on to that number 1 spot, let Dallas and Colorado perhaps fight it out. And in the Atlantic, I mean, it's really tight right now. And whoever wins that division will create a better path for themselves. It's not to say that it's going to make it easier necessarily, because in the playoffs everybody can be tough. But I think at the end of this thing, you want to try to give yourself any kind of advantage you can. So Brad Marchand, it's interesting. He's week to week right now. He went down. He got hurt last week. Didn't look good. Got off the ice slowly. But the Florida Panthers are playing the long game. They went out and added Seth Jones earlier in the week. That's a
yeah,
huge acquisition. What a great
huge.
thing for Seth. I mean, he gets out of Chicago, gets to go to Florida. And I'll say this about both Seth and Brad Marchand and going there to Florida. They're players who are going to be really well supported in Florida. Florida already has a good team. They've already got, Forsling on defense and Ekblad. They can slide Jones in alongside Mikkola. It's the same thing that Toronto was trying to do today by adding Carlo, trying to kind of get their top 4 in order. And they did that. And then they had Marchand, who will be, again, supported up front. He's not like Brad Marchand comes to Florida and it's expected he has to be, the offensive firepower there. They've got Barkov. Hopefully they're hoping to get Matthew Tkachuk back in the lineup. They've got Bennett. They've got Reinhard. They've got Lundell. They've got a number of guys. They're a deep group. He's just another piece, and he fits with who they are, right? They're kind of a nasty, they love kind of chaos, that team. Who loves chaos more than Brad Marchand?
He
No
is
way.
chaos. So he doesn't love
He
it.
is chaos.
He literally is chaos. He plays a game in a way that's going to fit really well in their
Yeah.
system. and he can go there with relatively little pressure on his shoulders for all the reasons you just mentioned.
Yeah.
Him and Tkachuk, like, come on. Like that's just
Crazy. And
uh
Sam
I
Bennett. Remember, it
yeah.
was just last year in the playoffs when Sam Bennett gave him the little, kind of short punch and,
Yeah.
knocked him in the next week. And there was all kinds of back and forth. And I remember Pasternak was fighting Kachuk last year in that playoff series. So it's odd to see. Like you thought if Marchand was going to
Yeah.
move, maybe he would move to the West and go to Vegas or somewhere out there. But in the end, he goes to the Florida Panthers. It will be really interesting to see if and when he's healthy and Matthew Tkachuk can come back healthy, what that team will look like in the playoffs. Because with Sam Bennett there as well, I mean, that's kind of that's going to be a nasty team to play against.
It's going to be very nasty to play against.
Yeah.
Funny salary cap and defenseman in Florida related note. Alex in the chat. So they get Seth Jones early in the week. Is that so they could clear out cap space in Chicago to pay off Shea Weber's salary in retirement? It's kind of a funny deal, right? It's a very NHL type of thing to happen at the end. It makes perfect sense if you understand the business, but
it's like Shea Weber, who's he's in the Hall of Fame. Right?
Yeah.
His contract is still bouncing around for teams to use for different purposes to get to usually it's for teams to get to the floor that they're willing to take on those contracts. So it's a little bit nutty and it's weird to see, especially like I said, a guy who just went in the Hall of Fame. But that is, like you say, Kyle, it is part of the business with some of those contracts where players had to retire due to injury.
The Florida teams definitely stayed active at this trade deadline. I guess the Cup still runs through the state of Florida for all intents and purposes, but let's move on to the biggest name from the day, of course, Mikko Rantanen, gone to Dallas and signed in Dallas.
Yeah. Well, that was the biggest thing, right? I mean, last night we started to get the word that the framework of a deal was there for the Dallas Stars and the Carolina Hurricanes on Rantanen. The question was going to be, would the Stars and Rantanen's representative, Andy Scott, be able to do a deal? That went on throughout the morning, but in the end, they come to terms on the 8-year, $12 million per season deal, $96 million total. From what has all been reported, Kyle, he was offered more from the Carolina Hurricanes. Now, remember, Texas is a no-tax state, so in real dollars, you make more. It's not always dollar for dollar, but from what I understand, and I think it was been reported, he was offered like 13.5 per year, which is over $100 million in total and 1.5. I mean, do the math. That's $12 million more over the life of that contract. And, he got to Carolina. I think that he was really surprised he was traded. His agent was talking to the Avalanche, and the Avalanche are in a situation there where they're paying McKinnon. I think it's 12.6. They know Makar is coming up soon. They may have to pay him 15. Who knows where that's going to be at? He's such a terrific player. But they just felt like they had to get out from under sooner, I guess, in management there. And I think that deal really shook up Rantanen. Wasn't really sure what was going to happen. He only got to play 13 games in Carolina. I don't think he really got to know it. You really get a feel for what was going on there. I don't think he really felt comfortable in the Roddy Brind'Amour style of play. And I think that was something else that made it hard for him to kind of fit right in right away. So I think at the end of the day, and as all these guys, that get to that stage, to be an unrestricted free agent and to pick wherever you want to go, I mean, is something that like we all would like to be in that position at some point of our life. He had that going for him. Carolina offered him a lot of money. He did not want to sign there. And in fact, it was pretty apparent he was never going to really sign there. So at the end of the day, Carolina did what they could. They get Stan Coven, who is a really good young player. He's a smaller player, but he plays with a lot of energy. I think he'll be a really good player for the Carolina Hurricanes. They get 2 first-round picks. I thought they might try to flip one to get another player before the deadline. That did not happen, but they still have those assets. Still a good team in Carolina, but at the end of the day, you have to say it's a hit for the franchise because
for sure
they did end up trading Marty Necas away in that deal to get Rantanen, and Necas has another year left after this one. And even if he were to leave at the end of next year, I mean, you'd have him for this year and next. So, we'll see where it goes for the Canes. I look at the Canes and, it's a good team. They're hard to play against. They do, they don't have a second center really in my mind to compete with the big boys, and the goaltending is always up and down. So I think they'll be what they always are, which is like the first round. I think they could probably, if they end up with New Jersey in the first round, which is really up for grabs right now with the Devils' issues, maybe they win the first round. I think the Washington Capitals, if they advance, would be probably
Right.
maybe a bridge too far the way things have gone this year. But it's got to be disappointing if you're a Canes fan because you have a good team there. It's a great fan base, and you're disappointed that you can't reel the guy in and get him to join the team.
But if you're renting and you've ended up with a new contract on a Stanley Cup favorite in a state paying low tax, and I think I read somewhere that it could mean a difference of four to 500,000 a season less in tax.
I
And
think it
because of
might
who,
even be more than that. I mean, it's pretty
more,
significant. It's pretty significant. And the other thing I will say for competitive people, as I mentioned, Brandon did not, I don't think, really like the way things ended in Colorado.
sure.
And now he's just down the road in Dallas in the same division. And he'll be there to say hello to you a couple times a year, every year for the next 8 years. So, I don't think it bothers me or Brandon at all that he gets to maybe come back and be a little bit of a thorn in the side of his former team. But on the flip side,
Yeah.
his former team might be a thorn in his side as well. That's shaping up if those two teams play in the first round. I mean, wow, that could be. It's a sad. They're both in this arms race of adding players. One of them is going to be out after 2 weeks.
Yeah, for sure. And we're going to get to Colorado's big deal for the day, too. But first, let's shift our attention to another Canadian team, the Ottawa Senators.
Yeah.
They acquired Dylan Cousins, Dennis Gilbert, and his 2026 second-round pick for Josh Norris, Jacob Bernard Docker. What are your thoughts there?
I'll tell you what, that is a fascinating deal because it's two teams that are in the same division that have been in the same place for the last couple of years, really, when you think about it. I mean, they've been these rebuilding teams. Now, Buffalo's been rebuilding for 15 years, it seems like, with several different rebuilds. And Ottawa, over the last several years, is trying to figure things out. Ottawa is moving closer to where they want to be. But I think they just wanted to be, they wanted to change the dynamic of their group. I think they wanted to be a harder to play against team. And I think that's why, for me, I like this trade better for the Ottawa Senators because Dylan Cousins, 2 years ago, 30 goals. I think he had 68, 69 points, somewhere in there. The ceiling is high. He's a high draft pick. He's a hard worker, big guy, plays hard. And then he signs a big contract, 7 years, $49.7 million. And he just has not responded in these last couple of years. And, Buffalo, the team has struggled. It seems like almost like losing is in the DNA there for some reason. Guys leave Buffalo and play great, as we've seen. But I think that, there's a purpose in going and getting him in Ottawa to come in there and to add some physical play. I think it'll be a fresh start for him there in Ottawa. I think they've got some really good a group of young defensemen there. They're set in goal with Olmark. I think that there's a chance that works out really good for the Ottawa Senators. They also had Gilbert in that deal, and he's like a physical player. Again, they're looking to be tougher to play against. They've got guys that can transport the puck on the back end, but Gilbert brings a little physicality. They also, went out and made a few other deals in the day to add a little bit of some help. Fabian Zetterlund they got from San Jose. I think he's kind of can be a helpful player as well. From the Buffalo side of it, you get Josh Norris, who's a really good player, but he's had some shoulder injuries in the last couple of years. He's a guy that can score from distance. But, I just don't know. I mean, with the Buffalo Sabres, I keep waiting for the Buffalo Sabres to take a step, and they just haven't done it. So I hope it works out for both teams, but it's one of those deals, Kyle, that same division, not far apart geographically. They'll play each other a lot. If it goes well for one team and not well for the other, it's one of those deals that gets you fired probably as a manager, and
Sure.
It's one of those deals that your fans never let you forget. So we'll see how it plays out. Hopefully it's good for both sides, but for me, I kind of like it more for the Senators.
Yeah, EJ, and on the lighter side of things, it's very difficult to tell in the moment, the day of, who actually wins a trade. But there's at least one fan in Ottawa who absolutely lost this trade today. He got Norris tattooed around his belly button.
Boy.
And he can't be happy because he's going to have to up and move right now, and it's difficult crossing the border. So
he'll like Buffalo. He'll like Buffalo.
Yeah, well, it's not that far, right? And with that tattoo, he'll fit right in there.
Not far. Although with the border tensions these days,
I know.
I don't know what to make of that anymore. So
it's not worth discussing. This is a sports show.
No.
Okay, let's move on to the Colorado Avalanche.
Yeah.
They acquire Brock Nelson, William Dufour, for Cal Ritchie, for just a pile of things. Todd, how does this bolster Colorado heading into the stretch drive?
Well, I love it when teams fill needs, right? And the
Mhm.
Colorado Avalanche have been looking for a second center since Nazem Kadri left after they won their Stanley Cup. He left as a free agent, signed with Calgary. And, they went out, took a swing last year, Casey Middlestat. I mean, they traded something substantial, too. I mean, they traded Bo Byram, who I think is a really good player, to get Middlestat, who I never really had a lot of confidence in. And at the end of the day, it didn't work out. So now they go and get Brock Nelson. He is a rental for them. They trade a pretty significant prospect in Cal Ritchie. And so I think that was what was appealing to the Islanders. They also get that high pick, but really it was the player. Like the Islanders will have a player next year in Cal Ritchie that they can plug in their lineup and will be part of their team moving forward because the Islanders still have a number of players that are helpful guys and they want to kind of retool more than to rebuild. So I think the idea they were able to get Cal Ritchie really was appealing to them. They looked at Brock Nelson. I think they talked about maybe an extension there. In the end, they didn't get close enough where they felt like it was going to happen. So you do in that case, you do what you should do, which is to trade the player and try to get what you can. They got a good return, and for the Avalanche, he'll slide right in as the second center there. So now you look at the other deals they made during the day
Yeah.
too. They added Charlie Coyle to the mix. So now down the middle, they're McKinnon as a 1, Nelson as a 2. Coyle as a 3, Jack Drury, who they got in that original Rantanen deal, as a 4. I mean, that's pretty good depth right through the middle of your lineup right there. Brock Nelson is can play with pace. He's a big man. He has good speed. I think he'll fit in really nicely over time with Colorado. And you look at their team up and down right now. They're gonna be a handful. And like Chris McFarland, the GM, and Joe Sakic and the management group in Colorado, boy, they have made a lot of moves this year. They changed their goaltending out completely earlier in the year. They changed things through the middle of their team. And they sit here now at the end of the trade deadline. I think you got to look at them as a team that really is going to be a dangerous team. But unfortunately, they're likely to finish third in that division and they're likely to play Dallas unless Dallas can catch Winnipeg. They're 6 points behind. They play 2 games against Winnipeg, so it's possible they could get the first spot. But if they don't, Colorado and Dallas just got heavily involved in an arms race here, and only one team is going to win it at least this year. The good news for Dallas is, Rantanen is signed long term, so even if it doesn't work out for them this year, they've still got a great player there for 8 years to come.
Yeah, and looking quickly in the Bet Rivers app about the Stanley Cup futures odds, how they've changed over the last 24 hours. You got the Avalanche went from plus 1,000 to plus 850. You've got the Stars that went plus 1,000 to plus 650.
Wow.
Other teams we've talked about here too. The Leafs actually went in the other direction from plus 1,100 to plus 1,300. The Panthers plus 900 to plus 550. They now have the best odds to win the Stanley Cup.
Wow.
That's wild. It's a
Well,
wild shift. It's
that's
representative of what we saw. Yeah.
That's the combination of Seth Jones and Marchand, right? Like it's
Yeah.
and I think Marchand is a name, right? I mean, Brad Marchand's been around a long time. He's the captain of the Boston Bruins. We know who he is. He is week to week with an injury. He is an older player right now. So we'll see, how he fits in there. But when you add names like Seth Jones and Marchand to a Stanley Cup, to a team that's won the cup and has been on a nice winning streak right now and is playing well and have great players, I mean, I can see why they would be the betting favorite. I will say this, that Colorado Dallas numbers, right? I mean, if you like the Avalanche, you might as well grab them because, I mean, I think it's kind of a toss up. You get the Avalanche at 850 as opposed to 650 for Dallas. And I still think the team that didn't do much today at all, they added, Beauvillier, is the Washington Capitals because their path is like they're in the division. I think that is the easiest division. They will play the second wild card almost certainly in the first round of the playoffs. If they win that series, and they'll be a favorite. If they win that series, then they'll play the winner of, let's just say it's New Jersey and Carolina, 2 teams that are weakened from where they were earlier in the year due to injuries and other issues. Washington could have a path that gets them right to the Eastern Conference Final, maybe to take on Florida, Tampa, Toronto, but whoever emerges from that will probably have a price to pay physically. So the Washington Capitals, to me, when you look at the long-term odds, and, they're not a team that everybody thought of at the start of the year, but I think you get a good value there for a team that I think will have a pathway to at least the Eastern Conference Final.
That's right, EJ. And finally, let's circle it back to the Leafs here. I know you got to get out of here. Your day's probably just beginning. Grade the Leafs trade deadline day with all the talk, all the lead up. They did
Yeah.
kind of what we had talked and speculated about. Give them a grade for the day.
I would say it's a B. I mean, I think they paid
Yeah.
a high price, but that was the market right now. I think they got things that they were looking for in a back end center, a guy that whether we want to call him a third center or a fourth center. I mean, we'll see how that plays out. And they got a right shot defenseman who's under contract for a couple of years that alongside Tanev kind of helps solidify their top four. So
Yeah.
I don't think they got individual game changers that would give you an A, and I thought they paid a significant price. As I mentioned, the market was tough, but they got players that should help their team. So and they gave only away one of the kind of those top three prospects that they have. So I think they position themselves well. We'll see down the stretch. We've talked about it a million times. The advice I would have is finish first.
Yeah.
Let
Especially
Florida
now.
and Tampa Bay beat the daylights out of each other in the first round, but we'll see how it goes. I didn't love the loss the other night against the Golden Knights, but I kind of, Kyle, I saw that one coming. We watched them against the Bruins and the Rangers and the Penguins, where games they could have lost, they found ways to win. Usually when teams are at the end of winning streaks, you can see the
Yeah.
cracks. They looked a little fatigued. Joe Wall has had a couple of games they wasn't great in. They get a couple of players here. We'll see where things go from here. It's going to be a heck of a stretch run.
There you have it, folks. The lead analyst of the NHL Network, EJ Hradek, gives the Leafs a very fair, in my opinion, B grade here on trade deadline day. Once again, you are watching Toronto Sports Rush. This has been our trade deadline wrap show brought to you by the Bet Rivers Network. I want to quickly thank Big Z, Monzo, Alex, producer Tim, and Troy behind the scenes. A lot goes into a show like this. There's a lot of stats and a lot of details. And if you've enjoyed this show, please like the channel, like the video, subscribe to the channel. Join us again. We'll bring you all the best post-game analysis, everything you want in the Toronto sports scene.
Yeah.
Once again, for Toronto Sports Rush, I'm Kyle Andrew. I was joined today by legendary EJ Hradek. Thank you for watching.